future and present generations. That's in C57. Unfortunately, direct economic conservation is now missing from the list.
Of factors to consider. Donc, Monsieur le Président, c'est pas la
Mr. Speaker, this is not the only inconsistency, and it won't be the last.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député de North.
The Honourable Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon I'm pleased to be co-hosting with members from all parties a reception on the Hill recognizing Canada's 18 UNESCO biosphere reserves. These 18 biosphere reserves have the distinction of including both some of the most pristine ecosystems in our country and incredibly dedicated stewards of our lands and waters. Located on the southwest shore of the Great Bear Lake in the Northwest Territories, the community of Delaney is home to our country's newest biosphere reserve, Satu. Designated by UNESCO in 2016, Satu is the first biosphere reserve in the world to be 100% Indigenous governed. I invite all my colleagues to join me in the Speaker's Lounge after the question period in celebration of our country's great biosphere reserves from coast to coast to coast. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Justice claims that Bill C-75 has nothing to do with sentencing. Bill C-75 makes serious indictable offences prosecutable by way of summary conviction. So instead of a sentence of up to 10 years, if prosecuted by way of summary conviction, the maximum sentence would be 2 years less a day or as little as a mere fine. That's right, under Bill C-75, a maximum sentence could go from 10 years to 2 years less a day. So contrary to the Minister's claims, Bill C-75 has everything to do with sentencing and everything to do with watering down sentences for the most serious of offences. Bill C-75 is a terrible bill for victims, it is a terrible bill for public safety, and it is why Conservatives will work to defeat Bill C-75.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thanks. As a proud former Royal Canadian Sea Cadet who attended for 5 summers HMCS Quadra with the Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps Undaunted and NLCC Captain Jackson, I am honoured to stand and celebrate one of the greatest youth programs in Canada. This year is the 100th anniversary of the Sea Cadet program with the Navy League of Canada. It continues to train young Canadians from ages 12 to 19 in seamanship, music, discipline, leadership, and life. I'd like to thank the thousands of volunteers who make this program possible in Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps like JTCVC, Capel, Deerwood, Schwifster, Dawson, Transcona, Crusader, and the Navy League Cadet Corps JRK Millen, Stand, Howitt, and Lord Selkirk. These volunteers give up free time, including weeknights and weekends, so that young people from all social backgrounds can enjoy and learn together in this significant life-changing program. Thank you for your contributions to Canadian society and helping make Canada a better place. Ready, ready.
Honourable Member for Esquimalt, Saanich Sud.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize World Oceans Day. This past weekend I was pleased to celebrate World Oceans Day on the Gorge Waterway in my riding, and I offer my congratulations to the organizers of this great annual event. The recovery of the gorge offers both inspiration from the success of volunteer-led efforts to restore both salmon runs and swimming to the gorge, but also a cautionary tale in the ongoing vigilance so necessary to protect this inlet. But now, when we are facing a future with more plastic than fish in the water, it's time for the federal government to act to protect our oceans, starting with an immediate phase-out of single-use plastics. If we are to stop global warming, we must end subsidies to fossil fuels, like the government's wrong-headed decision to buy the Kinder Morgan pipeline. This project is not just an impending climate change calamity, but also a major threat to West Coast marine life and ecosystems on which our local economy and our very future depend. On World Oceans Day, I stand with my constituents in their commitment to protecting our oceans and ask the Liberals to do the same.
The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, Ernest Gasser, a sustainable agriculture pioneer, died on April 12th at the age of 84. He arrived in Quebec City and settled there in 1951 and founded a farm there. Today, it's in its 4th generation. He founded what is today one of the largest farms in Quebec. Ernest was a pioneer and was always up to date on new technologies. He also followed changes in mentalities and was particularly sensitive to the environmental impact that agriculture could have. Ernest was president of the Caisse Populaire in Blackford, a member of the board of Solidarité Santé Bedford et Région. On behalf of all my constituents, I would like to offer my condolences to his family, his children Michael, Ernest, William, Doris, Carole, and his entire family and friends. We thank him for his devotion and his vision for his community, as well as a vision for the region and the country.
Honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ramadan is the 9th month in the Islamic calendar. Muslims across the world approach this holiday with much devotion and sincerity. Ramadan is the time for thoughtfulness, spiritual reflection, and acts of kindness. Those who are able will fast dusk to dawn as one of the 5 pillars of Islam while devoting themselves to worship and prayer. Let this be a time for all Canadians, regardless of their cultural or religious background, to join with those celebrating Ramadan by remembering the less fortunate and celebrating acts of kindness and charity. To everyone in Canada and around the world observing the holy month of Ramadan, I wish you a Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard Saint-Michel. Mr. Speaker, a country is first and foremost the expression of a people, and we are celebrating a people today, those of far-flung origins who were transposed into the 21st century. These citizens, through their knowledge, creativity, hard work, and emotions, gave the entire world a wonderful contribution. They created a phenomenal quantity of contributions that fascinate all of humanity.
La Bolisana, Ghia, Nutella, Campagnolo, Loro Piana, Cinzano, Armani, Barilla, Berretta, Mappei, Gianfranco Ferri, Ermenegildo Zegna, Tic Tac, Prada, Panerai, Piaggio, Pirelli, Nasoca, quelques-uns, Arada.
And those are just a few. So today I invite all my colleagues to celebrate the National Italian Day. Long live Italy.
Order. The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, by 2050 there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans. Stark examples exist of the damage plastic causes to our ecosystems. Just this past weekend, a pilot whale in Thailand died from starvation, having swallowed 80 plastic bags. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident. Today, on World Environment Day, we can all commit to taking action to beat plastic pollution. As Canadians, we know the importance of protecting our beautiful oceans and our pristine rivers and lakes for future generations. As Canada hosts the G7 summit later this week, I am proud that we're taking leadership by putting forward environment and climate change at the forefront of the agenda. I encourage all Canadians to join the conversation this World Environment Day and share online the actions they're taking by using the hashtag #BeatPlasticPollution. And Mr. Speaker, here's a challenge for yourself and all Canadians. If you can't use it, refuse it.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse des Chemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, in 2009, an organization had its funding cut by the federal government due to its support for terrorist organizations, Hamas and Hezbollah. This decision was upheld by the Federal Court of Canada in 2014. But today, we've learned that the Canadian Arab Federation is being funded through the Federal Summer Jobs Program, with the help of a Liberal member from Toronto. What's concerning is that this isn't an isolated case. Several Liberal members and even ministers apparently approved funding for such organizations.
The fact is that many Liberal MPs and ministers have approved organizations with ties to terrorism, anti-Semitism, and violent homophobia, this despite introducing their attestation. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, do the Liberals endorse this unacceptable situation, or is this just gross incompetence?
Honourable Member for Ottawa West Nepean.
Mr. Speaker, every day in Canada, 5 women die from ovarian cancer. Women diagnosed with ovarian cancer and their families deserve to have access to new therapies to improve their odds of survival. With no screening test and symptoms that can easily be confused with less serious conditions, ovarian cancer is usually detected at later stages. Nous ne pouvons plus.
We can no longer turn a blind eye to the harm caused by this disease. It's time we gave Canadian women with ovarian cancer a better chance at survival. We can change the course of this disease and even stop it. But more help is needed to ensure that women living with this disease can live better and longer.
Please join me in helping the Ovarian Cancer Society of Canada and the women for whom they work by raising awareness and by joining the Parliamentary Women's Caucus immediately after question period in the parliamentary dining room for a reception. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the work being done by an exceptional nonprofit. Since 1980, SHAD has provided an award-winning enrichment and entrepreneurial program that develops critical skills for young Canadians. SHAD builds leaders within our communities. Their program focuses on science, technology, and civic engagement. A few alumni of this program include entrepreneur Michelle Romano, the youngest person to appear on Dragon's Den. Wow. Darlene Lynn, a NASA scientist currently studying the exploration of Mars, and Jason Ferris, an executive for the NHL's Dallas Stars. Wow. SHAD has prepared these young leaders at many universities, including the University of Waterloo. Today is SHAD's Day on the Hill, and I hope many parliamentarians will meet with them and talk about their programs. Congratulations, SHAD, for your continued contribution towards the leadership development of Canadian youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Speaker, as the World Health Assembly meetings concluded last week, I rise to call for Taiwan to be included once again in all World Health Organization events moving forward. I believe that the enjoyment of good health is a universal right of every human being, which is why I successfully lobbied for Taiwan's inclusion in WHO events during my term as Minister of Health. Epidemics know no borders. Taiwan's absence from the WHO creates a significant gap in global cooperation on public health safety and disease prevention. Taiwan hosts 60,000 Canadians on its soil, and so any outbreak of infectious diseases such as SARS in 2003 would affect Taiwanese as well as Canadians living in the country. It is morally wrong for any country or organization to ignore the health and well-being of the 23 million Taiwanese people and prevent them from sharing health information. So I call upon the Minister of Health to end her silence and to start to advocate for the inclusion of Taiwan to the World Health Assembly. Thank you.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the G7 being held in Charlevoix, our government continues to show that it is a leader on gender equality. A new feature of the 2018 summit is the creation of the Advisory Council on Gender Equality, which aims to help make gender equality and women's empowerment integral to all of the G7's work. Canada is experiencing one of the highest rates of economic growth in the G7, and so it's essential that we capitalize on all of the talents of all of our citizens. And we know that investing in women means strengthening the economy for everyone. I'm very proud to represent a government that takes feminist issues seriously, and I'm sure that the government will use the G7 summit as a platform to inspire other countries to follow our lead when it comes to feminist policies. Thank you.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
I had no idea ovarian cancer is the most fatal women's cancer until Ovarian Cancer Canada told me virtually no one lives long enough to lobby or fundraise for it. The fatality rate's terrible. More than half the women diagnosed die in 5 years. There's no screening, no vaccine, no treatment breakthroughs for 25 years, no outcome improvements for 50. Katrina died of it this spring. She was a professional geologist, the best, most grounded young woman ever, made waves, got things done, brought people together. Sunday, her son Calvin turned 3. Before she died, she asked her mom, Sabine Jessen, "Don't let Calvin forget me." So that's up to us. Research funding's a fraction of what other cancers get, and few survive this disease in order to lobby and fundraise for it. Let's give the $10 million budget Ovarian Cancer Canada's asking for. Let's donate and find a cure.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Let me quote the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. Unfortunately, so often when people with disabilities get a job, receive a raise, or work extra hours, taxes and clawbacks of income-tested benefits leave them poorer. This is why the CNIB supports the Opportunity for Workers with Disabilities Act. It would require Finance Canada calculate how much workers with disabilities lose for every $1,000 they earn. If they lose more than they gain, the Finance Minister would be required to consider changes to federal tax and benefits to fix the problem. Also, the bill would require provinces do the same as a condition of receiving billions in federal transfers. Federal conditions for federal money are nothing new. To get the federal health transfers, provinces must honour the 5 principles of the Canada Health Act. To get the Canada Social Transfer, provinces are banned from imposing minimum residency requirements on social assistance. Infrastructure transfers even come with a requirement that provinces put up federal government signage at project sites. We ask you vote in favour of this legislation to enhance the work opportunities for people of all abilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Monsieur le Président, ce soir j'invite.
Mr. Speaker, tonight I invite all of my colleagues to celebrate the 3rd annual Canada-Italy Day on the Hill. Also, June is Italian Heritage Month.
Sacrifices of the trailblazers who came before us, including the nearly 2,000 men listed on the Italian Fallen Workers Memorial, and to my parents and that generation of immigrants who sacrificed so much. I am fortunate that along with my wife Rose, we can pass this pride on to our daughters Eliana and Natalia, and the entire Italian-Canadian community can continue to educate, reflect, and celebrate our heritage. I look forward to celebrating my Italian heritage with you all this evening and to recognize the community's vast contributions to Canada. Invito quindi questa sera i miei colleghi per un brindisi in merito a celebrare il caloroso rapporto di amicizia tra Canada e Italia. Vive la Canada e vive l'Italia!
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we understand that the government wants to consult on the steel and aluminum reprisals, but Canadian producers are already losing business opportunities because of the situation. They need to be supported. So why is the Prime Minister waiting for 3 weeks before imposing the reprisals when the American tariffs are already in force?
Public safety.
Speaker, U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs are completely unacceptable, even more so because they're imposed on the preposterous pretext of national security. Canada is fighting back to support Canadian workers and the businesses that employ them. From coast to coast, a very strong Team Canada effort is pulling together, except apparently for the Leader of the Opposition. Let me quote the Hamilton Spectator, Mr. Speaker, that said, quote, apparently nothing, not even pulling together in a national crisis, tops partisan sniping for the Conservative leader. I invite him here and now.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Order.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister told steelworkers all across the country that he had got them a reprieve on steel tariffs in March, but he knew then that it was only a reprieve. He's had 3 months to prepare countermeasures, but now he claims that he needs more time to consult. Canada's steel industry employs over 23,000 workers and supports 100,000 indirect jobs. The U.S. tariffs on steel is affecting those workers today. So I'll ask again, why is the Prime Minister waiting 3 weeks to impose steel and aluminum countermeasures when those U.S. tariffs are in effect right now?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, the criticism of Conservative partisanship is universal. This matter is deeply personal to people in Saskatchewan at Evraz Steel and the 1,200 workers who work there. Today, in the Regina Leader-Post, this was said, quote, in the face of what could be a serious threat to the national and provincial economies, one might hope someone who aspires to be Prime Minister would holster their petty partisanship for the sake of the nation. Good advice.
Is it Wednesday already? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, pointing out the Liberals' failure to implement these tariffs today is in the national interest. It is always in the national interest for the opposition to hold the government to account when they don't stand up for Canadian workers, and we will never apologize for doing our job holding them to account. It's not just on trade that the Liberals are letting Canadians down. We've learned this weekend that executives at Kinder Morgan will receive over $1 million in bonuses for leaving Canada's energy sector. Why is the Prime Minister giving bonuses to U.S. executives for pulling out of Canada's economy?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
So, Mr. Speaker, not only will he not defend Canada, he won't defend Canadian workers. What we're doing is we are building an economy and we are creating thousands of jobs by helping to get our resources to international markets. And that is exactly what we want to do to make sure this project goes forward with the great people that need to actually deliver on this project. So, Mr. Speaker, we stand behind Canadian workers. We wish the Conservatives would too.
Yeah.
Well done.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when Kinder Morgan first applied for this project, they were one of 4 proposed pipelines committed to investing billions of dollars in Canada. Now, after just 2.5 years of Liberal mismanagement, there's only one left. Now, I could understand an American politician paying executives bonuses for taking investment out of Canada into the U.S., but can the Prime Minister explain why he's paying those very same executives $1.5 million in bonuses to pull out of Canada?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, to be clear, I won't comment on what a private company does with their employees. What I will say, which is particularly important, is this project needs to get done. This is another example of the Conservatives actually not caring about workers in Alberta, workers in British Columbia, and not caring about the up to $15 billion a year we can add to our economy. They didn't get it done when they were in power. We're going to get it done.
Yeah.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says he will defend supply management, but it's just talk. In a report this weekend broadcast in the U.S., the Prime Minister said he'd be willing to give the Americans better access to our supply management market. Is the Prime Minister willing to defend our producers, as he said in Saguenay? If so, why is he willing to trade away parts of it to the Americans? The Honourable Minister of International Trade. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is resolutely determined to protect supply management. The Prime Minister, the Foreign Affairs Minister, the Agriculture Minister, all of Cabinet is on the same page. We've always been very clear. We will defend supply management, Mr. Speaker. We will defend the interests of our communities, our rural communities all across the country, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, that flexibility looks a lot like backing down. Yesterday was National Action Day against the purchase of the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Hundreds of residents demonstrated in front of Liberal MPs' offices saying that our money should be used for an energy transition, not to make Texan CEOs and execs richer. Why is the Prime Minister determinedly moving forward with this project that's completely disconnected from the opposition, be it Canadians or Indigenous communities? Mr. Speaker, because it's in our national interest. It's really very important for our economy. We're going to improve our economy. About $15 billion a year will be brought in with better access to international markets. And at the same time, we can add about 15,000 jobs all across the country. It's very important to our economy, and it's very important to our workers. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals supported my colleague's bill to harmonize Canadian legislation with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. But when it comes time to apply the principles of that to a pipeline, the Liberals do what they know best. They flip-flop. Mr. Speaker, you can't choose when Aboriginal people have rights and when they don't. Why is the government determined to ignore First Nations who are standing up and refusing to have this dangerous pipeline run through their communities? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
There was unprecedented consultation with Indigenous communities, layered on month after month because of the failure of the Harper government to consult Indigenous communities in the Northern Gateway case. So not only was there consultation, there was real accommodation. And the accommodation takes the form of an unprecedented $1.5 billion ocean protection plan that will be world-class. We're proud of that. Why aren't they?
Honourable Member for Desnethi, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Throughout history, the Crown has always found an excuse to ignore Indigenous peoples. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is our chance to finally put an end to that history. Last week, the Prime Minister championed this declaration, which includes free, prior, and informed consent. Why then is his government voting against honoring that historic declaration today?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member also, I'm sure, will know that for the first time in Canadian history, there was the co-development along the Trans Mountain Line with Indigenous communities. And this co-development will mean that the prosperity that will come to all of Canada because of the energy development that's so important for the future of the nation will be shared with Indigenous communities, a better life for their children, better education, better access to skills, community investments. We believe in all of those things. Why don't they?
Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Do you see what they're doing? Do you see how they're trying to pit one First Nations group against another? Yeah. Oh, watch. The oldest trick in the colonial book. The oldest trick that has been used.
Order. Do I have to remind members that they will often hear things from other members, sometimes from other parties, sometimes from their own perhaps, that they don't like. But of course we want to have one person speak at a time. So we need a little order so I can hear the question, and then I look forward to hearing the answer and so forth. The Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley has the floor. Order.
So you watch what Liberals just did. They said they believe in Indigenous rights and title, but only if Indigenous people agree with them. They believe in this as a principle, but only when the principle works out for Liberals. What we have seen through generations to Indigenous peoples in this country is government pitting one group against another and respecting rights only when it's convenient for the government. In just a few minutes, we're going to vote on the application of the UN Declaration of Rights in this House. What are Liberals going to actually do about it?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member knows that these projects are, by their very nature, divisive. They're even divisive within political parties. Are you sowing dissent between the premiers of Alberta and British Columbia?
to remind the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources that when you say you in this place, normally you're referring to the Speaker. I hope he wasn't meaning to do that, but at any rate, I'd ask him to direct his comments to the Chair, the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I was not intending to do that, but the honourable member knows that there will be different views within communities. May I ask the honourable member if he has consulted with the 43 communities up and down the line, including 33 communities in British Columbia, who stand to benefit from this project?
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Whenever he's in Quebec City, the Prime Minister tells one and all that he will protect supply management. In Saguenay, in October 2017, he told farmers, we will make no concessions on supply management. But on Sunday on NBC, he said he'd already offered the Americans more access to our dairy market. We're moving towards flexibility in these areas that I thought was very, very promising, he said. Can the Prime Minister tell us just how flexible? Was it 2, 3, 4, or 10% of our dairy, egg, and poultry market that he was willing to trade away to the Americans? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly engaged in defending supply management. The Prime Minister, the Foreign Affairs Minister, the Agriculture Minister, and the entire caucus are defending supply management. We believe in it, contrary to the conservative critic on innovation. So we will continue to protect the interests of our rural communities. Thank you. The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, last week's talking points were old news. To say you're willing to defend supply management is one thing. To commit not to make further concessions is quite another. In Saguenay, the Prime Minister said the Liberal Party was there to create supply management and will always defend it. Why say one thing to voters in Saguenay and the opposite to the Americans? Simple yes or no question. Has the government abandoned Canada's dairy farmers and reneged on its promise to fully defend supply management? The Honourable Minister of International Cooperation. Our government is firmly determined to protect supply management. The Prime Minister, the Foreign Affairs Minister, the Agriculture Minister, all cabinet ministers are defending supply management. So I would ask my colleague to have a discussion with his colleague from the BOS on supply management and get it together on this issue. We are determined to defend the interests of rural communities in Canada.
Agricultural producers in Canada have spoken up loud and clear to tell Liberals that they don't support their carbon tax. In fact, the president of the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan said the carbon tax adds huge costs to producers who are already facing tight margins. The Ag Minister's failure to recognize farmers' opposition to this carbon tax is troubling, and it's undermining his already diminished credibility. Mr. Speaker, why can't the minister admit he's wrong? Farmers don't want your carbon tax.
The Honourable Opposition Health Leader, I think, is acknowledging that she's supposed to direct her comments to the Chair. I appreciate that. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague is well aware that farmers are great stewards of the land. In fact, farmers have always been protecting the environment and have played a vital role in the fight against climate change. That's why gasoline and diesel fuel for on-farm use is exempt under the federal backstop. Unlike the previous Conservative government, the previous Harper government, who cut over $700 million from agriculture, we have invested, this government has invested hundreds of millions of dollars of agriculture and agriculture research. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
I'll tell you, every time I talk to farmers, they're telling me how much they miss Jerry Ritz. To everything, and that minister doesn't seem to understand that. From the price of seed and input supplies to simply driving into town to pick up groceries or taking their kids to the dentist, the family farm is going to hurt. So will the minister tell farmers how much is the carbon tax going to cost their families?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Farmers and ranchers are responsible stewards of the land, developing best management practices and innovative technologies such as zero-till farming that have reduced carbon pollution. They are on the front line of seeing and dealing with the effects of climate change. Under our plan to price pollution, provinces and territories can establish a system and use the revenues in the ways that work for them. In British Columbia, primary producers have exemptions from a direct price on pollution for farm fuel and vehicles that produce food we buy and farmers sell to international markets. The same is true with respect to the federal backstop. This government is working hard to address the issues of climate change in thoughtful and substantive ways.
Order. It was so much quieter at 12:23 this morning, wasn't it? Well, member for Carleton.
Trump tariffs will hurt Canadian workers, and so will Liberal tax increases. Those tax increases will apply on companies that employ people here, but if those companies move south of the border, we will lose those jobs and they won't have to pay the taxes over there. So, with this trade war now waging, will the government announce a full and complete moratorium on Liberal tax increases applied to the workers affected by American protectionism?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, maybe we should start with the idea that the small businesses in Canada actually have the lowest tax rate in G7 countries, including the United States. Then what we should move to is the fact that, in fact, corporations in this country have roughly comparable tax rates to those in the United States, competitive among G7 countries. What we know, Mr. Speaker, is that as international norms change, we need to listen and understand those changes. So we are listening to Canadian corporations to make sure that we consider those U.S. tax changes and make sure that our tax system remains competitive.
The honourable member for Carleton.
This finance minister is imposing higher payroll taxes on employers and workers. He's imposing a carbon tax on Canadian factories, a tax that companies will not have to pay in competitor jurisdictions south of the border. And of course, we know that he has raised taxes on 80% of middle-class Canadians. That coming right at a time when we're facing new attacks on our workers from south of the border. So, my question once again, will he cancel all Liberal tax increases planned on the Canadian workers affected by this trade war?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, when a fictional question is asked with fictional information, we need to actually react with the facts. The facts are 9 out of 10 families are better off because the middle-class tax breaks that we introduced together with the Canada Child Benefit. These are important facts. On average, $2,300 after tax more for Canadian families. This is an important change. It's actually what brought us to a situation where we had significant growth in 2017, unlike the growth experienced through the Harper Conservatives' years. Canadians are doing better. More jobs, better growth. It's working.
Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals continuously claim that they fully support our supply managed sectors, but Canadians are having a hard time believing it. First, the Liberals signed CETA, which created a breach. Then they signed CPTPP, which threatens to blow the sector wide open. And on Sunday, the Prime Minister said he is flexible to making concessions to these sectors as a part of NAFTA renegotiations. So which is it, Mr. Speaker? Because they can't have it both ways. When will the Liberals stop compromising our supply management system and actually support Canadian farmers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've been very clear on this. We have continued to support and are committed to maintaining the supply management system in this country. The Prime Minister has indicated, the Minister of Foreign Affairs has indicated, many cabinet ministers have indicated this, and the negotiators at the NAFTA table have indicated this. It's important to note that it's the Liberal government that put supply management in place, and it's the Liberal government that will support supply management. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Jonquière.
The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said he was flexible when it comes to dairy products and supply management in NAFTA talks. He said access to the Canadian dairy market was a potential trade-off in order to seal a deal. The government can't say it supports supply management and then cut deals that would undermine dairy producers and workers. Can the government explain to farmers what exactly flexible means? The Honourable Minister of International Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, our government is firmly engaged in defending supply management. We created it, we believe in it, and we will protect it. And to support our rural communities, we have earmarked $250 million for dairy producers and millions for processors as well. We believe in this system, and we will continue to defend it.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, Kinder Morgan didn't need any taxpayer money for the Trans Mountain expansion, just stability and certainty. But the Liberals funded anti-energy activists to stop it and did nothing for a year and a half while opponents attacked relentlessly. Now they've paid $4.5 billion tax dollars to buy the old pipeline. Kinder Morgan is taking its planned $7.4 billion out of Canada. The Liberals are making Canadians pay for the mess Liberals made. How can the Prime Minister justify using tax dollars to give executives millions in bonuses for his own failures?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the only failure on this file was the failure of the Harper Conservatives to get any way for our resources to international markets. What we've moved forward with, Mr. Speaker, is dealing with political uncertainty that the private sector can't deal with. We've purchased these assets so we can actually create the jobs, create the advantage for our economy so that we can move forward in a better situation. We will eventually move it back to the private sector after we de-risk the project, a way that the previous government was not willing to do.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
But of course, in actual reality land, Kinder Morgan is the latest in a long list of energy companies divesting from Canada because of these Liberals. They attack Canada's regulatory track record and add red tape and costs to Canadian oil and gas. They've killed more than $100 billion in private sector energy investments, and hundreds of thousands of Canadians have lost their jobs. Now the Liberals are putting taxpayers on the hook for their utter and predictable failures. Why is the Prime Minister risking Canada's energy sector and giving money to millionaires while Canadian energy workers and their families struggle to make ends meet?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I thought the members opposite were in favour of the pipeline.
What happened?
You know, for months and months and months, the problem was we weren't doing enough. It's only rhetoric. It's only words. And now that we decide to de-risk the project, making sure that these jobs will stay in Canada, all of a sudden, we've done too much. We haven't done enough. We've done too much. We want the pipeline built. And by the way, 1 to export markets is better than 0.
Order. I almost always enjoy hearing from the member for Battle River Crowfoot, but I prefer that it be when he has the floor. The
Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to reassure Canadians. The Canadians are for the pipeline, but against nationalizing it, because $4.5 billion in taxpayer money is going straight to Texas. And what's worse, when you talk about nationalization, it's a bad deal. I have, on page 134 of Kinder Morgan's financial reports, their assets in Canada are valued at $2.5 billion. So $2.5 billion for an old pipeline. Why did we pay $4.5 billion for it? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we know that it's very important for our economy to have a situation in which we have a pipeline, but at the same time, there will be expansion of the pipeline. That's very important. That's why we decided to do something to help the future of our economy and at the same time to help jobs all across Canada. It's very important to our country. The pipeline will be there for the economy, for the people of Alberta, for the people of BC. It will be very important. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, Canada's will see that the minister did not answer my question. When you talk about nationalization, of course there's going to be a pipeline there, but the question is, did we pay too much for it? The financial reports for Kinder Morgan Canada list the assets value as $2.5 billion, and they paid $4.5 billion. Order. Once again, I must remind the member that the question must come through the chair. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we decided that it was very important to our economy to do something. It's very important to us to have a pipeline that gives access to international markets. It's very important. And with the pipeline, we know that at the same time, that will bring about 15,000 jobs to the country, and for the economy, it will improve things by about $15 billion a year. That's very, very important, and that is why we stand with the Trans Mountain Pipeline project.
Mr. Speaker, today is World Environment Day, and with the G7 meeting in Quebec just days away, Canadians agree that ocean plastics are one of the most important environmental issues. The Minister has said that Canada will play a leadership role with G7 countries, and yet the Liberals still have failed to take any concrete action on this critical environmental concern here at home. Will the Prime Minister finally start being a leader for the environment and support my motion to combat plastic pollution in our waterways? Or is he just going to keep talking about it?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, plastics pollution is an important and growing problem in Canada and around the world, and our government is taking action. We appreciate very much the constructive discussions that are happening around the country, including with municipal leaders, around how we can actually reduce plastic waste and keep it from polluting our environment. This week, as the honourable member likely knows, Canada will be proposing a plastics charter at the G7 leaders meeting to align international efforts to reduce plastic pollution. We're working with the provinces and territories to develop an approach. A national consultation is underway, and we encourage Canadians, including the honourable member, to come forward and voice their thoughts and their recommendations for how we should proceed.
The honourable member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals promise to be the champions in tackling pollution and in protecting the environment, but they clearly are not doing enough. People all over Quebec and Canada are calling on the government to act. 105,000 people signed a petition in support of a motion brought forward by my colleague from Courtenay Alberni, calling on the government to deal with ocean plastics. Will they support my colleague's motion and finally take concrete action to deal with this epidemic? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, plastic pollution is an increasing problem the world over, and our government is taking concrete steps in tackling it. We appreciate the constructive discussions that take place at any level and all over the country on how we can reduce plastic waste and reduce its impact on the environment. This week, we will be proposing a plastics charter at the G7 summit with a view to aligning international efforts in reducing pollution plastic. We're also working with the provinces and the territories.
For Oakville.
Mr. Speaker, the Internet is not a luxury but a necessity in today's world. We need net neutrality to ensure the free flow of information. This is vital to our freedom of expression, our digital economy, and our democracy. Mr. Speaker, in my motion M168, I called on the government to have net neutrality as a guiding principle in the Telecommunication and Broadcasting Act's review and to enshrine it in legislation. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development please provide an update on his progress to date?
Yes, excellent.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to first of all take this opportunity to thank the member from Oakville. As he mentioned, today we officially launched the review of the Broadcasting and Telecommunication Act. And this is very timely and it's very important because of the changing technology, and we need to make sure we have modern legislation in place to keep pace with the changes that are occurring. Specifically around net neutrality, as the member mentioned, and this is going to be a guiding principle in the review. I want to congratulate him for his leadership and hard work, and make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, our government firmly believes in an open internet.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, in January 2017, the Prime Minister invited the whole world, to come and live in Canada. Our border officers are expecting up to 400 illegal arrivals per day this summer in Quebec alone. We know that many of these immigrants do not come back for their second interview, and no one knows where they live. In all this chaos, can the Minister of Immigration tell us how many people have entered the country illegally since January 2017? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, the numbers are available for my colleague. We're not hiding them. As you know,
We are working with the provinces, with the American government as well, and in fact, my colleague, the Minister of Immigration, has recently been in contact with the Secretary of Domestic Security. We are working on this file, and the numbers of people crossing illegally are perfectly available. He can consult them. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Well, it's normal that the Minister of Transport wouldn't be aware of the numbers. It's not his file. Once again, border services officers are being strongly encouraged to shorten security screening interviews for illegal migrants down to 2 instead of 8 hours. Not only does the Prime Minister lack the courage to enforce our immigration laws, but he's playing with fire by reducing the security screening times for those who do not respect our laws and enter illegally. I have a simple question for the Minister of Immigration. What is the wait time to process illegals and to deport those who do not qualify for asylum?
Mr. Speaker, the border operation is a three-part process. First of all, for those who cross the border outside of ports of entry, they are arrested by the RCMP. When the RCMP has done their security check, they are turned over to CBSA for further processing, and if they pass that security check, Mr. Speaker, they proceed to Immigration and Refugee Canada officials for consideration of their eligibility. It's a very detailed process, and security is not compromised.
Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the processing of asylum seekers is currently inefficient. It is time to take concrete steps to fix this systemic problem. Between January and April this year, there were 9,615 illegal entries in Quebec alone. Can the minister tell us how many immigrants have crossed the border illegally, been processed and deported following the analysis of their file?
Order. Mr. Speaker, as I explained in my previous answer, this is a multi-stage process involving several agencies in my portfolio, plus the Department of Immigration and Refugees Canada. It is a process that has worked remarkably well under very stressful conditions over the last 18 months, and I think all members of the House of Commons would want to congratulate the officials at the border who have made sure that every Canadian law is enforced and every Canadian international obligation is respected.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, it's June 5th. And the crisis is ongoing and has been for 2 years, and we have still not been given an answer to our questions. We asked 3 very simple questions today that the Minister of Immigration was not able to answer himself. Now, I understand that the Minister of Transport and the Minister of Public Safety are trying to do their best to answer the questions, but it's not their file. Will the Minister of Immigration rise and answer our very simple questions in order to inform the Canadian public about the situation? Mr. Speaker, our government is determined to ensure orderly immigration.
$3 million on irregular migration to ensure that our border security operations are fully staffed, as well as the faster processing of immigration claims. What the member opposite fails to understand is that this is a joint effort. The IRCC is responsible for processing immigration claims, and CBSA under public safety is responsible for removals.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Mr. Speaker, Amnesty International has just released a report finding, after field investigations of 42 airstrike sites in Raqqa, Syria, that U.S.-led coalition air and artillery strikes killed and injured thousands of civilians, and that many of these were disproportionate and indiscriminate attacks that could amount to war crimes. These are serious violations of international humanitarian law, and they call for accountability. So what's this government doing about it?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is first of all a top contributor in Syria, having committed $2 billion for the region, We've provided close to $3 million in humanitarian assistance to partners in Syria, making Canada the fourth largest country donor to the 2017 Syria Humanitarian Response Plan. We're among the biggest donors to organizations that investigate international crimes and the use of chemical weapons in Syria. In addition to that, foreign ministers at their G7 meeting not too long ago committed to upholding humanitarian law and working with partners around the world when they work with those countries and other third-party actors. We will continue to work hard for stabilization in Syria.
Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court of Israel gave the green light to demolish a Palestinian Bedouin village.
That the government of Canada has been silent on this matter and on the government of Israel's announcement that they will build more illegal settlements in the occupied territory. Our European allies have spoken out against the demolition of Khan el-Ahmar and the new illegal settlements. Where is Canada's voice?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, Canada is a steadfast ally of Israel and friend to the Palestinian people. And as always, we're determined to support a process that will lead to a just, comprehensive, and durable peace in the Middle East. Our government is committed to the UN, and we respect resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. For many years, Canada, under successive governments, has stated that settlements constitute a serious obstacle to that comprehensive, just, and lasting peace. We have a long-standing commitment towards that, and we will continue to work to build the conditions that will lead to that lasting and durable peace.
Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have been calling on, for a quick implementation of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now more than ever, we need the opportunity of duty-free exports of aluminum and steel to Australia, Japan, Malaysia, and Vietnam. Canada should be taking a leadership role in ratifying this agreement. Will the Liberals move quickly forward with this new trade opportunity at a time when it's desperately needed?
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I guess you would all agree there's never been a better time to diversify. That's why I was so proud to sign on behalf of Canada the CPTPP, an agreement that colleagues will now open a market of 500 million consumers, 14% of the world economy, and yes, Mr. Speaker, we will produce expeditiously to ratify the agreement, and yes, we will introduce legislation before the House rise this summer to make sure that our workers, our SMEs across this country have access to one of the most promising markets in the world.
Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, the minister's own officials have stated that the text of the current CPTPP is virtually identical to the 2015 version the Conservatives negotiated. The legislation should be ready to go. If the minister could get this bill tabled, is he willing to work with the Conservatives to ratify this deal before the House rises for summer?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will always work with the Conservatives when they want to work to create jobs for Canadians. That's what we have been asking for them, is to work to make sure that workers and SMEs in this country would have opportunities. Mr. Speaker, let me remind them, we have 22 suspensions that this government negotiated to get a better deal for Canadians with respect to culture, with respect to the auto sector, with respect to IP. Canadians deserve that. We will always fight for them at every table.
The Honourable Member for Cariboo, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, in December, the minister received a memorandum from his department assessing the 9 surf clam proposals. This morning, his deputy minister confirmed that the winning bid had the lowest level of First Nations participation. Of course, we know the application did have the highest level of Liberal participation. Now, the minister has stood repeatedly in this House and said that his decision was all about reconciliation. Can the minister explain how choosing an application with the lowest level of First Nations participation has anything to do with reconciliation?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said a number of times in this House, and as our Deputy Minister repeated at committee this morning, one of the most important things about this process was to bring Indigenous communities into an offshore fishery, to bring a new entrant into the Arctic surf clam fishery, something the previous Conservative government had a process to achieve, but forgot to include Indigenous people. And Mr. Speaker, our process was designed to consult industry and find the proposal that brought the best economic benefits in terms of job creation to Indigenous communities in 5 provinces. That's why this proposal was selected for next steps.
The
honourable member for Miramichi-Grand Lake. Mr. Speaker, today is the United Nations International Day for the fight against illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. Illegal fishing reduces fish stocks and destroys marine habitats. Globally, illegal fishing comes in many shapes, in domestic waters and in offshore waters. Even though the extent of illegal fishing is unknown, it is estimated at 30% of all global fishing. Can the Ministry of Fisheries tell us what our government is doing about this? The Honourable Minister of Fisheries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleague from Miramichi-Grand Lake for his question. As you know, Mr. Speaker, Canada is proud to contribute to multinational activities in order to protect fish stocks offshore against illegal and criminal fishing practices. Our government has taken a strong position against illegal fishing, and the drift net operation is an excellent example of international collaboration. It is thanks to international partnerships like that one, and that the G7 has taken, that we will be able to go even further ahead in Quebec with our G7 partners. The honourable member for Les Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are putting the cart before the horse when it comes to marijuana. They want to legalize cannabis before they adopt their improvised measures on drug-impaired driving. Mothers Against Drunk Driving are very concerned, and understandably so. The QPP is not ready either. Ottawa couldn't care less about Quebec's wishes. How can the Prime Minister and the Liberals jeopardize the safety of all Canadians by ramming through the legalization of pot?
Safety. Mr. Speaker, both bills, C-45 and C-46, are extremely important, including in Bill C-46, the toughest measures in the world to deal with impaired driving. We have worked very carefully with all members of Parliament, with the Senate, with provinces, with law enforcement agencies to get this strengthened law in place. And I would look forward to the Conservative Party actually supporting Bill C-46, because some of the elements in that bill were originally proposed by this honourable member.
The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, in September, thousands of workers employed in Canada's nuclear industry stand to lose the right to have their pensions protected under the Public Service Superannuation Act. There is no justification for these workers to be denied a secure and long-standing right. These workers have had their pensions ripped away from them. Will this government stand up for these workers and reverse this backward decision before it's too late?
Parliamentary Secretary to the President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Harper Conservatives' decision to sell off the Atomic Energy of Canada Limited's nuclear laboratories has had lasting effects on employees. We recognize the situation that CNL employees now find themselves in, thanks to the Conservatives, and we are doing everything possible to offer pension protection for employees that have been impacted by the divestiture.
Honourable member James Assiniboia Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, our government was proud to continue to contribute more than $35 million towards the new diversity gardens at Assiniboine Park in my riding. Construction is underway, and a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit the site and see the progress for myself. Once complete, the gardens will help connect Winnipeg to its roots, increase tourism, and create good local jobs. This is just one example of more than 145 projects in the province that have received federal funding since our government was elected. Can the Minister of Infrastructure provide an update on our government's continued investment in Manitoba communities?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for the question. I'm very happy to inform this House, particularly so as I'm surrounded by hard-working Manitoba MPs, that yesterday the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities signed an agreement with the Government of Manitoba that will see the federal government invest more than $1.1 billion in infrastructure over the next 10 years. This funding will mean better public transit, more recreation and community centres, and better roads and bridges across the country. These investments will help create jobs and economic growth, build inclusive communities, and support a low-carbon green...
The honourable member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, an event is taking place in Charlevoix, very near the Quebec City region. We are proud that the whole world will be watching our beautiful province. However, experience shows that when there are large gatherings, There's often, if not always, vandalism, and the victims are businesses and individuals. Now, I know there's a compensation program, but given the number of times the Liberal government has done an about-face, will the Prime Minister commit now to respecting citizens and businesses and provide them with adequate financial assistance in case of damages before the end of summer? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we are very proud to have the opportunity to host world leaders in the beautiful region of Charlevoix for the G7 summit. And like I had the opportunity to tell my colleague opposite yesterday, the compensation policies for local businesses that are affected are the same as those that were in place under their government when they were hosting the G7 in 2010. We know that Charlevoix residents themselves are so proud to host this summit, and we are all proud as Canadians to be hosting it. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Aluminum isn't just about producers. For processing, we're talking about 1,400 businesses throughout Quebec. The vast majority of SMEs will not be able to bear 10% of American tariffs. Now, the government has said that it will stand by workers. If it's going to stand by workers, it has to act now, not after these workers become unemployed. What will the government do? What's its plan for aluminum processors? The Honourable Minister for Economic Development. Mr. Speaker, the American tariffs are unacceptable, and that is why we will continue to defend our workers and our steel and aluminum industry. I met with the association yesterday, and all options are on the table, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Bécancour, Nicolas Sorel. Mr. Speaker, last Sunday, the Prime Minister said on NBC that he was willing to be flexible on supply management. Now, we learned last week that he hired an advisor who is supportive of eliminating supply management, so our producers are very worried. I have two questions for the minister. What does flexible on supply management mean? And will the government confirm that they hired an advisor who is supportive of abolishing supply management? The Honourable Minister of International Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, our government is firmly committed to defending supply management. It is the Liberal government that brought in supply management, and we will continue to defend it. Whether it is the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Agriculture, our whole caucus, we all believe in supply management, and we will continue to work on behalf of our rural communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers are outraged that the government took $1 billion to find a dishonest way of funding Trans Mountain, a pipeline project that is against the wishes of those in British Columbia and First Nations. Now, because this scheme seems to be working pretty well, the Liberals are already thinking of using the same scheme to ram through Energy East and down the throats of Quebecers and First Nations, and once again trample on their will and use up their money. From nation to nation now, can the government assure us that Energy East is dead and buried forever? Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, one thing that is very important to remember is that we know that it is important to have a pipeline for international markets. That is our approach. We see the expansion as being very beneficial for our economy and for jobs throughout the country. That is our priority right now. That is to ensure that the project goes ahead and that we will be able to benefit from the opportunities for our economy and for all Canadians.
Order. I would like to draw members' attention to the presence in the gallery of Ms. Sonia Lheureux, Parliamentary Librarian since 2012, who will be retiring at the end of June. Ms. Lheureux has been working for the library since 2008, and she started her career in the public service in 1987. On behalf of all members, I would like to thank Ms. Lheureux for her years of service, and I would like to wish her And I would like to wish her the best in all of her future endeavors.
The Honourable Député de Bellechasse.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Chemin-Lévis is rising on a point of order. Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. During member statements, I informed the House that an organization that had supported terrorist funding had received funding from the Canadian government through the Summer Jobs program in a Liberal riding. From the government's website, I now have the proof that this organization received federal funding. I would request the House's unanimous consent to table this document. Does the member have unanimous consent? No, there is no unanimous consent. Order. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Point of order. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier, I talked about Kinder Morgan's financial status, so I would ask for unanimous consent to table this report. Does the Honourable Member have unanimous consent? No.
Hello.
Order.
Being 3:09 p.m. pursuant to order made on Monday, June 4th, 2018, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. Saganash relating to the business of